Good afternoon. I'm calling the Council for the City of Port Alberni for September 11th, 23 to order. I am Acting Mayor, Councillor Todd Patola.
Oh, sorry, Todd.
No worries.
He likes hearing.
That's all right. I can wait. We begin the meeting by recognizing and acknowledging that we are holding our meeting on the unceded traditional territories of the Sept and Pachysith First Nations. We will bring a motion to approve the agenda. Are there any late items to be added by councillors? Yes. Councillor Solda?
I would like to add a discussion on graffiti, please.
We will put that under new business item 3. Any other items to be added by any other councillors? Seeing none, may I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second, Mr. Mayor, if there was no lead items from the corporate officer.
Through the chair, no late items. Thank you.
So moved by Councillor Solda, seconded by Councillor Mealy. Any discussion? All in favor? Carried. Note that this meeting is being video recorded. It's being live streamed and broadcast on YouTube. And this is also our first amalgamated meeting, hybrid meeting. And we expect to have some participation online later on in the meeting. Before we adopt the minutes, I note that yesterday, the second Sunday of September, was Firefighters National Memorial Day. The fire station in Port Alberni noted it by lowering the flag to half-mast. Council's had an opportunity to review the minutes that are in page 6 of the agenda package. If there is a motion to approve the minutes of the special meeting held 12 p.m. and the regular council meeting held at 2 p.m. on August the 14th as presented.
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Moved by Councillor Mealy, seconded by Councillor Dane. Any discussion? All in favor? Carried. Item C are delegations. We have Director Bodin. If you could come forward, please.
I turned it on. Excellent. Thank you. I am thrilled today to be here to introduce our newest member of the City of Port Alberni team, Dave Coline's first day today, and he is our new Human Resources and Safety Advisor. Dave comes to us most recently from Paper Excellence Catalyst Paper and has a wealth of knowledge in both safety and in human resources. Dave is born and raised in Port Alberni, and so many of you may already know Dave. I know many of our staff he knows many of our staff already, and so I expect he'll hit the ground running, and I'm very excited. So I don't know if you have any questions, or turn it over to you if you do.
Thank you, Director. Welcome, Dave Colin, and welcome to the city part of the city, because you've already been part of the city. So glad to have you aboard.
Thank you.
Thank you. So we have no unfinished business. Staff reports, accounts.
I'd like to move that the certification of the Director of Finance dated September 11th, 2023 be received and checks numbered 153318 to 153459 inclusive in payment of accounts totaling $2,878,982.86 be approved.
Seconded by Councillor Mealy. Any discussion? All in favor? Carried. Item F, bylaws. CEO, do you wish to present the reason we're back? Oh, sorry, Director Smith. I'm sorry, I looked right instead of left.
Thank you, Council. So as Council may be aware, we have been working on our new zoning bylaw 5074 for some time. council held a public hearing on this bylaw on July 31st of this year. And then on August 14th, council granted or gave third reading to that zoning bylaw. Following the August 14th council meeting that was where they granted third reading, staff identified that a table of parking stall dimensions was missing on the zoning bylaw 5074 under section 7 when council was considering third reading of the bylaw. That table was included on the public hearing agenda and inadvertently somehow got dropped when it came forward to council for considering it for third reading. This table provides the dimensions and size of parking stalls within the municipality. It is existing from the current zoning bylaw, so there was no proposed changes with this table. As I indicated, it was included in the public hearing version of it. Staff did research under Section 470 of the Local Government Act does allow a bylaw to be altered after a public hearing, so long as that alteration does not change the use, density, or residential tenure in any area. And so based on that, a further public hearing is not required. So we are asking council to consider rescinding the previous third reading and granting third reading again with the parking dimension table being added to third reading, and I'd be pleased to answer any questions.
Council have any questions for Director Smith? Would anyone like to make the motion as written?
Yes, Mr. Chair. I move that third reading of zoning bylaw number 5074, 2023 be rescinded.
Seconded by Councillor Solda. Any discussion? All in favor? Carried.
And if I may, Mr. Chair, I move that zoning bylaw number 5074, 2023 be read a third time as amended.
Seconded by Councillor Solda. Any discussion on the issue? I would like to take this opportunity to raise my previous objection, which is the one change that I read after first reading and after second reading. I noticed it when we came to third reading on the last go-round, which was the change in the definition of home occupation uses that limits multifamily residences. The only home occupation use can be for a office. And I found that change to be unnecessary and not directed through any policy of the council. And in fact, the issue had been discussed with regards to home occupation extensively by members of council, and many made comments saying that they were in favor of supporting home occupations, and there was no direction to limit them. In fact, it's probably something that should be a discussion amongst council specifically as to how we define home occupation, but currently it's not defined. And my impression of the tenor of that conversation was that we're not interested in limiting it, at least not without some specific discussion. So I would be opposed to third reading at this time of the zoning bylaw and would suggest it should be sent back to a public hearing with that piece removed, as I understand is the requirement. I don't think that would be particularly arduous, as there were no attendees at the public hearing on this bylaw as we had it. But I just, even though it's another step, I would suggest that that's the course that we follow, because home occupation is such an important use as set out in the bylaws, enabling individuals to secure their homes, to be able to afford to help their mortgages or otherwise remain as members of this community on an economic basis. And on that basis, I would suggest that that the motion be defeated and that there be a following motion that removes that one section and sends the matter back for public hearing.
Thank you. I would just like to answer that, and I'm sorry I didn't have the information at the time, but after that meeting, staff did go back and look, and our manager of planning, Brian McLaughlin, did note that that actually wasn't a change. What it was is that clause previously existed only in the multifamily zones in their individual zones. So what it was done in order to be clearer or more clear to everybody, that clause was taken from the multifamily, each individual multifamily zone, and put into the general regulations section of the home occupation. So it wasn't a new regulation. It was relocating it from the multifamily zones into the home occupation zones, so it was easier for clarity to be reading all the home occupation regulations in one section, as opposed to having to actually go and look at the multifamily zone to see that particular section. So I'm sorry I didn't have that information at the time. Staff did check on that and just want to make council aware that it wasn't a new regulation. It was taking it from one section of the bylaw into another section, which we felt as staff would provide more clarity to people when they're looking at the home occupation regulations.
Thank you, Director. For me, that certainly does make it much clearer, because as I read those definitions, it wasn't there. It's just I wasn't reading in the right place where it was hidden, and now it's not hidden. So I appreciate that. Thank you very much. Any other comments by any councillors? Councillor Dame.
Thank you. Yeah, I also agree that home business is something that we should be supporting as much as is possible. I feel like I'm not fully confident in the implications of going back and doing this over again. I suppose it's as simple as making that change, having another public hearing, doing 3 readings again. Which, I mean, that's certainly not nothing. But if this is important to everyone, I suppose we want to get this right. So I would be interested to hear what my colleagues have to say about that.
Councillor Haggard.
Thank you, Acting Mayor. I was in the impression from our conversation that we were going to be looking all of the bylaws regarding home-based businesses all at once and not taking this one specific one at a time. So I thought that was under the impression that we were going to do that at a later date. Is my memory correct?
It is my understanding that the home occupation, those things will come to a future committee of the whole meeting. And I guess I do want to be clear that the clause that Councilor Petola, or Acting Mayor Petola it's not a new clause. So by removing it would be a change to the existing bylaw. And that's, of course, up to council, but I guess what I want to be clear of, it's not a new clause, it's not a new limitation. What it was is we relocated it from one section of the existing zoning bylaw to be included under all the home occupations, so that, similar to what happened to the councillor who thought he was reading a new clause, wasn't, because it wasn't in where you would normally think to find it when you're looking for home occupation regulations.
Councillor Dame.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I have much more to say on that. I would be happy to leave it as is for now personally, if I knew that we were returning to this conversation at a later time for a more fulsome discussion on it. I'd be satisfied with that.
Thank you. CAO, could you comment on where this falls in the now, next, later?
Through the chair, I believe this would be on the next, but I believe it also will be getting some information from the OCP and our public participation through that process. But if council would like us to put that up in the priority list, we can do that as well. I believe there are many changes that are modernizing this bylaw. that will help us move forward in a positive direction. However, I understand that council is concerned about the home occupation. I've heard that loud and clear. So, and I know Scott has also heard that loud and clear. So if you want us to try and bump it up faster, we can, but we would like to do it in the order. And I believe the first would be concentrating on the OCP and then following out from that and making sure that there's good public engagement.
Thank you. Yeah, I think this is certainly an issue that would benefit from public engagement through the OCP process, and then council can address it with the full community through a committee of the whole. So I think that means I have to call the question. All in favor of the motion that's on the floor, which is to read the zoning bylaw for a third time? Carried.
In favor, John.
Thank you. I see we have Councillor Douglas online, and we're also expecting Mayor Minions to be joining us online at some time during the meeting. So I'll make sure I keep an eye on them as well. Correspondence for action. G1, letter from the Alberni Clayoquot Regional District Transportation Advisory Committee. Corporate Officer?
Thank you, through the chair. So this is a letter from the ACRD requesting that the city of Port Alberni appoint a representative to sit on the newly formed Transportation Advisory Committee, which commences in October of this year. And I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you. Councillor Mealy? Sorry.
Sorry, thank you, Mr. Chair. I was going to make a motion if possible. I move the council appoint Councillor Solda as a representative to the Alberni Clayoquot Regional District Transportation Advisory Committee.
I'll second that.
Okay. And I apologize as Mayor Minions is not here, and usually she would have some input, and she's not online just yet. So I'm hoping that's her choice. So.
Are there any other councillors that would be interested in being that representative?
I'll just make note of it. I'm the Advisory Traffic Commission person, but I would more than happy be an alternate if Councillor Solda can't make it.
Thank you. I don't see any indication from Councillor Douglas that he has any comments on this matter. I just don't want to move along and miss him by mistake. So seeing nothing, the motion has been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor? It's carried. Congratulations to Councillor Solda. Item G2, under correspondence, is the Alberni Clayoquot Regional District Food Security Emergency Planning and Preparedness Letter. There's a motion suggested there. Does anyone wish to read the motion? Councillor Haggard?
Thank you, Acting Mayor. During COVID, I really realized how important or how fragile our supply chain is and how important food security is to our community and every community. So I'd like to make the motion that council support in principle future collaboration with the Alberni Clayoquot Regional District for the purpose of a regional study on food security, indigenous food systems, agricultural resilience, and emergency management, pending a successful application by the ACRD to the Ministry of Agriculture and Food, Food Security Emergency Planning and Preparedness Fund.
Moved by Councillor Haggard, seconded by Councillor Solda. Any discussion on the issue? All in favor? Carried.
In favor, John.
Thank you, Councillor Douglas. So the next item, proclamations H1. Although it may not seem like a significant matter, I am in conflict as I act as a director for the toy run, so I will leave the meeting and turn it over to Councillor Mealy.
We have 4 plus Mr. Councillor Douglas, so we have 5, yes. Don't go too far, Councillor Patola. There is a motion suggested that council proclaim the week of September 11th to September 17th, 2023 as Port Alberni Toy Run Week in Port Alberni. Any discussion or any motions like to be made? Councillor Solda.
I'll move that the council proclaim the week of September 11th to the 17th, 2023 as Port Alberni Toy Run Week in Port Alberni.
Do we have a seconder?
I'll second that.
Councillor Haggard. Any discussion? We'll let Councillor Douglas first, just to ensure that he gets to say.
Thank you, Councillor Mealy. I'm very much in favor of this motion. I think it's a good motion. Thank you.
There we are. If there are no other discussion at the time, I call the question. All those in favor? Councillor Douglas?
Favor?
Anybody?
Thank you.
Anybody opposed? No. Motion is carried. Acting Mayor, could you come on back?
Please all come out. I know it's a great parade if you're watching, and it's a great parade to ride in too. Item 2, Port Alberni Fire Department requesting that the week of October 8th to 14th be proclaimed as Fire Prevention Week. Would anyone like to make that motion? Councillor Dame?
Thank you, I'd be happy to. I move that council proclaim the week of October 8th to 14th, 2023 as Fire Prevention Week in Port Alberni.
And I'll second that motion.
Any discussion on the matter? All in favor of that proclamation? Carried unanimous. And would anyone like to read the next proclamation? Councillor Mealy?
I'd love to, from the Port Alberni Community Association for Community Living, that council proclaim the month of October 2023 as Community Inclusion Month in Port Alberni.
Seconded by Councillor Solda. Any discussion? All in favor? Councillor Douglas?
In favor? Thank you.
Thank you. Carried. Correspondence for information. There is a number of letters included. Does the corporate officer wish to point any out specifically?
Through the chair. Do I wish to point any out specifically? That's kind of for council to decide, but I think I would suggest, I would say that the minutes of the Section M, Advisory Planning Commission minutes, you may notice there's three sets of minutes. That's just us going back and making sure that we're getting all the proper signatures in the minutes so that we can now post them properly to our website. And you'll find that we're going to be doing that with all of the committees. So you'll see that coming in over the next few meetings.
Thank you. Are there any councillors that would wish to highlight any of the correspondence? Councillor Haggard.
I wish to apologize to our First Nations community. I will not be here for September 30th for all the events that are happening, but I just want to, the Shuswap and Huichesset First Nations people know that my thoughts and prayers are with them that day. Thank you.
Any other councillors? Motion to accept the correspondence.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Seconded by Councillor Dame. All in favor? Carried.
All in favor, John? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Douglas. Council reports. Item K. Do any councillors have any reports to offer? Councillor Haggard.
Thank you. I just want to congratulate the Industrial Heritage Society for their 40-year celebration this year and for the great event they held on the long weekend with their truck display. It was the first event in 5 years I've been able to drag my husband to, and even bought a hat, and he really enjoyed himself that day. And also want to thank the Industrial Heritage Society for allowing myself and Councillor Dame to be part of the parade on Saturday, which was lots of fun being with them. So shout out to the Industrial Heritage Society.
Thank you, Councillor Haggard. New business, item L1, the reclamation of materials for Canal Beach Pier improvements. This is brought forward by Councillor Douglas. I'll ask him to speak to the motion. Councillor Douglas, are you still online?
Here we go. Thank you. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Hello? Okay, great. Thank you. So this is, I'll just read through the motion if I may, and if I can get a seconder, we can go into some more detail should council wish it. So I'd like to make a motion that council direct staff to salvage and reclaim materials from the Somas lands and other city projects which could prove suitable for pier improvements at Canal Beach, as well as other relevant city projects. And further, that council directs staff to collaborate with Seashot First Nation, recognizing the importance of this historic area to develop a comprehensive plan meeting both governments' needs.
Second that.
Seconded by Councillor Dane. Discussion on the
Thank you.
matter.
So I can just proceed if I may, Chair, just briefly. There are some materials which I believe are in the screen in front of you. A short document consisting of possible models for the pier project based on early assessments which were done by the city over the last several years, as well as some drawings by an engineering firm that were commissioned by the city back in 2018. The first page there, if I can ask our corporate officer to just scroll down, just illustrates some of the activities that are typical on a pier of the nature which we're considering. Most of the activities revolve around culture, history, and family. A great deal around family and community, the type of place where you could go down with your grandchildren and maybe throw a rod in the water or look at some cultural representations of the history that have occurred over a period of time, and also a great opportunity for general artwork, as you can see in this one slide here with the mermaid on the rock and historical laminated information pieces on the local environment, that sort of thing. There are some images as well, which can demonstrate some of the actual planning that has been put in place. If we can just scroll down to the next sheet, this one here was commissioned by the city, I believe, in 2018. What it does is it shows the actual existing infrastructure, primarily consisting of pilings and concrete structures, which have been assessed for their integrity prior to this. These drawings were put in place. And if we can scroll to the next one, please. It'll show the original drawings which were put forward by McGill Engineering, a local engineering firm, which I don't have an arrow to point at, but the solid areas are the concrete structures that do exist. And then surrounding that are the pilings and the potential decking that could connect all those pieces. And if we can go to the next page. We enlisted our former city engineer and former city manager, Mr. Ken Watson, to come up with some ideas. And one of his suggestions to save a lot of budget-wise and also a more unique development was to develop a narrower walkway along the existing pilings, along with a floating dock, which could enhance use by the local First Nations and local wind sports and water recreation users. And if we can go to the next one, please. And this shows the final sort of image of those plans proposed by Mr. Watson. Now this is, so that's as far as the images go. We don't really need to look at anything in more in depth. The essence of these two motions, however, is simply to allow for a beginning of this pier project. What these motions will provide for is the building of what can become a very valuable partnership between the city, the Seashot First Nation, our Industrial Heritage Society, and several other members of our community. In addition, it'll allow our portion of contribution, for example, the materials from the SOMAS site, to begin to be measured as an in-kind contribution, which will have a very positive effect on the budget amounts that the city eventually would be putting in towards this project. Having council direction for careful scrutiny during the current demolition may very well allow a vast portion of our contribution to be in kind, thus reducing the overall budget while encouraging others to provide matching funds, as we've seen occur in past projects with iced tea, for example. And once these preliminary steps have been taken, as a result of these motions, we can return to council with a more thorough concept and a more thorough opportunity to answer questions, to accept suggestions. But really what this is doing is it's kind of a bit of putting the cart before the horse, because what we really want to emphasize is starting out on a partnership basis with the Seashot First Nation, and then coming up with the fundamental ideas to bring back to council. And that's, be happy to receive any questions about this and any suggestions. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Does any council have questions for Councillor Douglas? Councillor Solda.
Just a quick question for Councillor Douglas or staff. So regarding T-Shot, are you looking at talking to T-Shot first before we go forward? If we do, I believe we should have some communication dialogue before we start stockpiling. If they don't want it, then what do we do? What's your thoughts on that, Councillor Douglas?
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Sola. Yeah, no, it's a very good question. So we have had, it's one of those strange things at the beginning of a project. You really have to talk to people prior to the project to see what their feelings are. So I've had some quite thorough conversations with Chief Watts and received very positive feedback from him. And we've talked a number of times. And the last instant, he actually delegated an individual from their council to have further discussions, which we did, and received a concept from them of how they feel about it, which was very positive. So long as we start this partnership off in the right way and let them play a full role in being a full partner. And that's what we're trying to approach it in this fashion. The reception has been very positive.
Follow up, Councillor Solda.
I do. So I'm just kind of curious to know, I know to build what you are showing us, and staff hasn't really gone through this yet. I know it's going to cost a lot. So I'm not saying no or yes to the project. I just would like to know how that's going to evolve in the long run. It will be a cost. So where are we going to get that kind of capital? And I'd like to know, I mean, I'm sure it's not going to be cheap.
Well, first, Councillor Douglas, if you wish to respond, and then if there's any input from staff.
Counselor, you're on mute.
Okay, are you with me now? Hello?
Yes.
Please go ahead, Councillor Douglas.
Okay, yeah, okay, sorry for that, technical difficulties. That's exactly why we're at this stage now, because what we really do want to do is get a comprehensive plan so that we may return to council and discuss it, possibly have it referred to staff so that they can come up with the figures that we do need in order to make a decision. So that's really the stage we're at now, is just to ensure that we don't, for example, lose the opportunity of the in-kind materials that we're seeing down at the SOMAS site and take advantage of those. And then we'd like council's permission to discuss this with the CSHOT and then return so that council can be fully informed on the next steps.
CEO?
Through the chair, on this project, we have not been involved as administration at this point. I have had several conversations with Councillor Douglas, and he is aware of some of the items. As buildings are taken down at the SOMAS, we stack the wood that is the city's, and then we put out packages to the market. I believe what he's asking is anything that we recognize that could be used for a pier, that we set it aside at this time and store it until the time whether or not we find out if we have a feasible project or not. If we don't, then we would proceed with selling the wood.
Councillor Mealy and then Councillor Haggard.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm just like you, Councillor Solda. I'm not sold yes or no either way, but the way the motion is written, it can be used as other relevant city projects or sold off as well. So I'm willing to support the motion as a starting point.
Councillor Haggard.
Thank you, Acting Mayor. I think the city has done a fantastic job in selling or repurposing the buildings and selling materials from the SOMAS site. In my opinion, I think it would be a very time-consuming process to identify odds and sods of pieces of wood that could be used for a possible pier project. During the last term, we had a councillor that had a saying that if you focus on everything, we focus on nothing. And I think the council's main priority over the next 3 years, and I could be wrong, I'm speaking primarily for myself, is the redevelopment of the SOMAS properties. And I think if we focus on building a pier, that takes away from staff time, it takes away council time, and it takes away funds that we do not have or have not even thought about, and it will take away from completing the SOMAS project. Well, I think this is a good project. It was not identified when we did our strategic planning process, so it has not been identified by council as a strategic priority. So I realize this is a passion project for Councillor Douglas, and I appreciate the time and effort he has put into this project to date. However, at this time, I cannot support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Haggard. Any other comments by councillors? Councillor Dane.
Yeah, thank you. I think that as the motion is written, as Councillor Mealy, I was going to say Charles. Got it. As it's written, I think that it's open enough that I don't see any issue in having staff keep their eyes peeled for materials that might be beneficial to city projects, potentially this, potential future project. But I agree that there's a lot more discussion that has to happen about how this would be paid for. But I also would be happy to support this as an initial step.
Thank you, Councillor Dane. I wish to ask perhaps the CEO if, through myself to the CEO, as it were, what the staff time required to fulfill this motion, if passed, would be. What time limit do we have in storing materials, and how long would it be appropriate to store materials for? I take it at some point that SOMAS site is going to be redeveloped, and then we'd have to be trucking materials and storing them somewhere else.
Thank you. And through the chair, I think evaluating for some of the materials the easy materials are decking, that type of material, until you get into the structural parts of it. So currently it would be quite easy to take wood that we see necessary for decking. Our project manager that is looking after the SOMAS site could probably set that aside fairly easy. But if we got into some of the structural components with not having full renderings or drawings, it might be harder to decide on those types of materials. So those types of materials would likely be sold off because we wouldn't know what it was unless it was used for some other city project that we know and are aware of. Really, I don't think it would take a lot of time. The part that would take the time is the consultation with the CSHOT and trying to vision what is down there, and that I can't comment until I talk to the CSHOT and understand where they're at on the project and start to get involved as administration. If council would like, if they do pass this motion today, we could have frequent check-ins and let you know how much staff time is required. As far as storing of the materials, once that it becomes in the way, we would come back to council and get it to see what council would like to do. Again, we aren't trying to incur more cost at storing this. It would just simply be set aside until we need to make a decision on it.
Thank you. Councillor Dame?
Thank you. Yeah. So regardless of exactly how the first half of this motion plays out, I see a lot of value in the second half of the motion. I think that having that conversation is a great idea and something that we should be doing regardless of whether this pier happens or not. Having a discussion with the Sept First Nation regarding what is currently known as Canal Beach, to develop a comprehensive plan with them, I think that is an excellent idea.
Councillor Solda?
I just hate putting the cart before the horse, and it's really bothering me because we haven't had the dialogue with the T-Shot as a whole. Staff has not had that dialogue. We're just, let's stockpile, and I'm just having a little issue with that. I don't mind putting stuff away if we were going forward with it, and I like the idea of the project, but we are putting the cart before the horse, and we've done that before. Everybody's going to hate me using this analogy. McLean's Mill is our example. We put the cart before the horse before we went forward, and we don't even know if we're going to go ahead with putting decking. When the wharf was taken down, it was because it was a danger, and we kept the pilings because we saw there was a future to put a deck down, but when and how much it's going to cost, and down the road it might not be up to standards to keep everything, and things might change. So I'm not sure where I'm going to go with this. I just don't like going the cart before the horse. Thank you.
Councillor Mealy?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Perhaps may I suggest that we split this into two different motions, and perhaps that would be best for council from what I'm listening to, if that is possible.
It's possible by right if you make that motion.
I'd like to make that motion, Mr. Chair.
Very well. So the motion is now to be dealt with as a point of order individually. The first part being that City Council directs staff to salvage and reclaim materials, and then secondly, the part with regards to collaboration with Sept First Nations. So now that it has been split with regards to the first motion, does council have any further comments on that first motion?
Sorry, just a point of order. So if I made the motion, it needs a seconder for that to happen. Am I correct in saying that, Mr. Chair?
It's not a motion. It's a matter of right. It's within our procedures bylaw. We all have to look and see if we're good.
Sorry, I'd like to speak on it then, Mr. Mayor. Just the mere fact that it looks like there's I think everybody can agree on the second part of this motion. So I'd hate to throw the baby out with the bathwater on this. So if we deal with it separately, I believe we can come to an agreement.
So my dealing with just the first part of the motion, it presumes that in fact there will be a project to redeck the pier, and that may or may not happen. I understand Councillor Douglas's desire to not miss out on an opportunity of retaining materials that will be appropriate. I'm kind of split in my mind about whether it's appropriate, though, to direct staff to salvage materials, although I take solace from the comments of the CAO that it would not be an additional workload for staff. Although at this point in time, the way the SOMAS lands are being moved forward is through large projects that are vetted and posted, bid upon, and the city itself isn't selling bits and pieces. So I'm not sure the city should be, whether it would be feasible for the city to be claiming bits and pieces at the same time. So I'm careful that I don't really want to make more work for the city and have left a bunch of stuff that could have been sold off that now can't be sold off, sitting around to become the seeds of some other project that somebody comes up with an idea for. So I'm torn on that matter, and I'll leave my comments on the second matter until we get to that. Any further comments? Very well. I'll call the question. All in favor of the direction to keep reclaimed materials from SOMAS lands? Councillor Douglas?
In favor?
And opposed? Thank you. Carries 4-2. Now the second part of the motion, it's already been moved and seconded, but we'll deal with it separately. Is there any further comments with regards to the collaboration with the Sept First Nations? Councillor Haggard.
Thank you, Acting Mayor Patola. I'm wondering if we can hold off on this motion or put something at the end saying when we go to redevelop it. Right now, we're just leaving it as is, but if you make any changes, then absolutely we should be in consultation with the Sept First Nation.
Councillor Douglas, do you have a comment on that?
Well, I understand, I think, the intent of Councillor Haggard. I just, maybe I can try and explain that as we all know, we've done things in the past where we haven't consulted appropriately with our First Nation neighbors. And this intent of this is to go ahead and consult from day one. Now we've just voted in favor of reclaiming and setting aside materials for potential project. And then we're at the same time, we're sort of deciding not to consult with the First Nations if this doesn't go ahead, this second part of the motion. I think it's a really fantastic opportunity for us to build building blocks from the very beginning with the Sept First Nation. I've had conversations with them in necessity because I wanted to have that building block in place, and they've indicated to me, the ones that I've talked to, a willingness to have those discussions. So I would really just encourage people to consider voting in favor of this motion as it is worded currently. Thank you.
Councillor Mealy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to Councillor Douglas. Councillor Douglas, you say you've been having discussions. Was that with the mayor or city staff involved? Can I just ask that question? Because I just want to make sure I make the right decision based on the information I have. And I want to make sure that other councillors don't have more information than I have.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thanks, Councillor Mealy. And I know this is somewhat delicate because, of course, I wouldn't want to have formal discussions outside the circle of our council. But, you know, as you know, we have had some meetings together with Sept First Nation and other First Nations. And there have been informal opportunities where the topic of the beach came up between both myself and Chief Watts, and also between myself and our mayor, and informally with several of the people on our council here. So there have been, but very, very informal, but very positively received discussions, which would prove, an inviting conversation ground for real discussions about it. And I felt the reception there was very positive in terms of, you give us the right place to come and discuss this, and we'd really like to discuss it with you. That's the impression I've been given.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair, to Councilor Douglas. I appreciate that, Councilor Douglas. I just want to make sure that those discussions are had, at least with the mayor or staff involved as well. But I appreciate you giving me an update on that. Thank you very much.
Any of the councilors?
I don't know if I want to say anything more or not.
Please go ahead. Well, why don't you just think about it for a minute and I'll make my, thank you. So I would be voting against this motion for two reasons. First of all, it doesn't really describe anything. It asks staff to collaborate with Seychat First Nations, which we do at this moment, regarding the importance of a historic area, which we don't know what that is, to develop a comprehensive plan meeting both governments' needs. A plan for what? So this motion is not worded in a manner that I could support, that it doesn't provide a specific direction as to what council is directing staff to do. Further, although I am told that this area of Canal Beach, as it's currently referred to, is most directly associated with the Seychat First Nation, I'm told that by people that I don't know that they know what they're talking about. And although that may be true, I think that any discussion and consultation we have with First Nations in this valley be with both of the First Nations in the valley. And should the matter only concern one of the First Nations, I think it is up to the First Nations to tell us that through a person that is duly authorized by that First Nation. So I would not support any motion that directs council or directs staff to only consult with one First Nation without some official representation from both First Nations. Councillor Mealy.
Thank you, through you, Councilor Patola, to yourself. Just, I believe when we talk about the historic area, it's referring to the Polly's Point area, which is right outside, and that has been Seychat area for time immemorial. So I do understand what you're saying, though. Of course, we need to talk to both Huipachesset and Seychat First Nation, but I do believe that it is, from my understanding, and I could be wrong, is that area, Polly's Point, is not under dispute.
Thank you, Councillor Mealy. And again, I believe that you are absolutely accurate to your understanding, but I also recognize that colonial powers have their interpretations of facts, and I would not wish to rely on them. So I find you reliable in every other way. Councillor Douglas, you have your hand up.
Yes, thank you. Through the chair, I just wanted to mention that this was originally a motion included in one motion where the reference to Canal Beach was in the previous paragraph. So when you mentioned this historic area, we don't know where it is. It's actually referring to Canal, or otherwise known as Teepas Beach. So the lack of reference is a result of splitting this original one motion into two. So if you like, we could change the wording in there to refer to Canal Beach or Teepas Beach or both. So that's the one note I wanted to mention. And the other note, I would just say that from all my research, what Councillor Mealy just mentioned was very accurate, as the best of my knowledge, regarding the Seychat First Nation and that specific area. Thank you.
Councillor Haggard.
Thank you, Acting Mayor Patola. At this time, council has absolutely no plans and had no discussion on doing any improvements to the pier or doing any improvements at Canal Beach. So I would like to table this motion until such time as we do have the discussion and make plans on doing improvements or changes to Canal Beach. And Councilor Douglas is absolutely right. Anything we do, we should consult from day one. And this is a council that strives very hard to do that. So, but at this point, we've had no discussions and we don't know anything about any improvements at Canal Beach, so I'm not sure where this is coming from, but I would like to table this motion at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Haggard. To the corporate officer, I know a lot about splitting motions, but I don't know a lot about tabling motions. Does that require a vote, or is it just by matter of right?
It's tabled. It's end of discussion, isn't it?
Through the chair, yeah, council can choose to table it until a future meeting.
Yes, my only question is a vote required, or is it by matter of right by motion of Councillor Haggard?
Well, you should probably vote because, well, we want to know that you all agree to table it.
Thank you. So on that advice, is there any further discussion with regards to tabling the motion?
Sorry, Mr. Acton, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, the ask of the table is a non-discussion and we vote on it.
Very well. On that advice, the matter is tabled. I told you you're reliable on every other matter than the history. Could we recess for 5 minutes?
Certainly.
Eckert, do you have a motion?
I'd like to withdraw my motion to table this motion. Instead, I would like to defer this motion until the budget 2024 for discussion.
Seconded by Councillor Solda. Motion to defer has no discussion, so all in favor? Opposed? Councillor Douglas?
Burners of Breath episodes from the beta blocker. Rating those are going away.
Councillor
Well,
Douglas?
last night was the first night where I haven't.
See, that's the problem if we just unmute, right? Councillor Douglas's vote should be taken. So we will need to recess until Councillor Douglas is available, which is for an indefinite period that I do not know. Yes, Corporate Officer.
Sorry. Through the chair, I'm on my phone a lot because we're texting with each other with technical difficulties, but it does say that he's just away for a quick bit. And he will text me when he's back.
Thank you. Perhaps we could recess for an indefinite period of time until the corporate officer notifies us, but not longer than 10 minutes.
They
I realize that, but it's still not proper.
Sorry, are we in recess? We are in recess?
Douglas, are you available online?
He's on mute.
Councillor Douglas, can you hear us?
Modern technology.
Councillor Douglas, if you can hear me, unmute your microphone.
Thank you for your patience. Yep, just got through
Thank
here
you.
now.
Thank you. So Councillor Douglas, there was a motion to defer the second part of your motion until the 23-24 budget cycle. And we have called a vote on that. So far, we have voted for the yays, but we do not have your vote to record.
Okay, I'd be against the motion of tabling. Thank you.
Thank you. And other councillors against, just because we're recording it at the same time? Thank you. The motion to defer is carried. We have a revised proposed motion with regards to the UBCM emergency resolution submission. Would any councillor like to read that revised? Councillor Mealy?
Would you like me to run through this, Mr. Mayor? Whereas British Columbia has endured the most devastating wildfire season to date, and whereas impacts experienced across the province related to wildfires and associated highway closures are numerous and far-reaching, particularly as it relates to economic development in the tourism sector, adding additional burden to ongoing challenges related to recruitment and retention, supply chains, and inflation. And whereas local commercial and industrial businesses within the Alberni Valley and neighboring coastal communities have been particularly hit hard as a result of the ongoing closures and unpredictability of Highway 4, the one major road serving as the primary entry and exit point to the region. Therefore, be it resolved that the UBCM urge the provincial and federal government to administer immediate assistance and financial aid to the commercial and industrial business sectors that have been impacted by the wildfires and associated highway closures, and further, that government programs such as disaster financial assistance be expanded to acknowledge both the direct and indirect impacts of natural disasters to ensure support of affected businesses during and following natural disasters.
I'd like to second that, please.
Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Haggard. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor? Any opposed? Councillor Douglas, are you there?
I'm in favor, thank you.
Thank you. The motion is carried. Under new business, item 3, the addition to the agenda, Councillor Solda, issue of graffiti.
Yes. What I want to talk about is the graffiti in Port Alberni is getting really bad. And you can go down to the lower 3rd Avenue next to the Dairy Queen, the building that's been burnt and boarded up. I don't know how they climb up there and paint what they've done. There's a lot of graffiti in the upper 3rd area too, as well as in the middle. So some of the language on some of the walls are getting to be interesting. And I think we need to start implementing our program or do something what we had in the past where we supplied the paint and to any of the owners of the buildings and let's paint them or someone paint them. I know there's some obviously absentee landlords who might not live in our community. I don't know if there was a bylaw made, I can't remember in the past regarding buildings that were graffitied and the owners had to take care of it. I can't remember. There was a lot of discussion in the past and we did do an amazing job keeping the buildings free of graffiti. And I think we need to do that again because our uptown, we hear from merchants all the time about graffiti, what it makes the uptown area look like. Graffiti becomes derelict looking and it's not fair to the upper and lower or any merchants to have all this graffiti all over the place, and we need to start doing something. So could we have staff check on if there was a bylaw? I don't know if Scott remembers or if the CAO, could you maybe?
Through the chair, staff can look into the issue of graffiti and bring a report back to council to let you know what we can do, or if there's other options to move forward if council would like.
I would really appreciate that, Acting Mayor, because it's getting really out of hand. And yeah, thank you.
Councillor Mealy?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate that. And I do thank you, Councillor Solda, for mentioning that. I do remember that my previous time that the city would provide paint to local businesses to assist with at least offsetting the cost of having to repaint. And it does, it brightens, takes away the graffiti, brightens it up, at least. And so the city was providing the paint. So I do remember that.
So Councillor Solda, are you making a notice of motion, or are you requesting an agenda item for the next committee of the whole meeting, or what? How would you like to proceed?
I would like to make a motion. I know we're supposed to do notice of motion, but this is getting ridiculous. It's getting to be fall, and it's easier to paint when the sun's out than in the rain. And waiting next year, that's ridiculous to do that. So I'm not sure what's your pleasure there, Acting Mayor?
I would certainly entertain a motion if you were making a motion to request staff to provide a report. Councillor Mealy,
sorry.
Councillor Mealy.
I was going to assist in that, just to say we should make a motion to have staff provide a report on any previous graffiti bylaws or direction, and have that at the next committee of the whole meeting.
So moved by Councillor Mealy, seconded by Councillor Solda. Any discussion? Sorry, CM.
Through the chair, we wouldn't be able to probably meet the next committee of the whole where it's in 2 days. I just want to make, if I can get some information, I would, but the agenda, I believe, is going to be published probably tomorrow.
If I may, as a future committee of the whole meeting. It doesn't have to be the next one, but a future committee of the whole meeting.
Any discussion on the motion? All in favor? Councillor Douglas?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Motion is carried. Question period. This is an opportunity for the public to ask questions of council on decisions or recommendations made during the course of the meeting. A maximum of 3 questions will be permitted per speaker, and we may have some online questions as well. I will look to the corporate officer to tell me if there are. Would anyone like to come forward and ask questions? Thank you. When you come to the mic, please just press the speak button and state your name and your area of residence.
I'm Charlene, and I live in Cherry Creek. And I delivered on Friday packages for all of you with the druthers. I don't know if you're all familiar with the druthers at all. The newest national newspaper with very good, truthful information. And I was just wondering if you had an opportunity to read the information that I gave and read about the UNDRIP, which I believe council has already signed on to.
I can only answer for myself, although not really related to the business that we've discussed today. I am familiar with UNDRIP, but I have not read the Druthers newspaper. So I'll have to look for where it was received so that I can get a copy of it.
I know, I just dropped them off on Friday, so it's a little bit of quick notice, but okay, well, maybe at the next council meeting, I could ask the same question and see what you think about it. Because council did sign on to the UNDRIP, have they not?
I'll have to check with the CAO, but I don't believe that council has made any declarations with regards to UNDRIP, although I know council in the past has had lots of discussions and consultations with local First Nations.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone else have any questions? Please come forward.
Just as for clarification on that, materials number 1 and 2. My understanding, I'm pretty sure this is right, that it was split into 2 sections. The first one was passed, that you will set aside products that might be used for other projects. And I don't understand why there was so much debate there. So my question was, is this correct, first of all? And,
Yes.
because that's already been doing, from what I've seen, they're piling all this stuff in related parts. The second one,
Would you like a response? Would you like a response to the first question?
sure, certainly.
Yes, so.
Thank you.
Yes, you're correct. The first part of the motion was passed, which was a direction to set aside reclaimed materials from the SOMAS lands. That's part of the de-building, down-building of the lands to prepare it for further projects and development. The second part of that motion was simply put off to a later date, which corresponds with the next budget planning cycle with regards to whether or not that project will be in the budget planning cycle.
And I guess I'm wondering what we benefit from doing that, considering it's talking about what we're planning to do in the future for that area. And to have talks with the various parties on now, to me, is a plus. Why put off that? And the thing that concerns me, that affects what may be done with the first motion. If something comes up where we recognize that there's parts down there that we want to use for that, we can't do anything then until we settle number 2. So it was a smart motion that was put forward by Councillor Haggart, and I don't understand what it was all about.
I'll speak for myself, and much to my chagrin and the displeasure of my wife, I often putter about in my garage and think, I could use that nut.
Right.
I better save it. And I save it for 20 years. And then I use it, darn it, even though I don't have a plan for it. And so thus, I'm obviously stating the obvious, that the direction is to save what timber or usable products are available from the SOMAS lands for unenvisioned future projects. And because we're within a budget cycle, and there has been no discussion on this budget cycle about projects concerning the area known as Canal Beach, there is not an ability, unless we pass amendments to the budget, to talk about those other plans. So we've put that off to the planning cycle of the next budget.
Well, I did understand that. I guess I'm just a little... The second motion sort of negates the first one. In some ways, it would restrict movement on using materials that were put aside because you haven't had these discussions regarding what the future holds for the project that Mr. Councillor Douglas is referring to, Canal Beach, which was put forward years ago as mayor. So there are other things, Douglas, besides what we talked about. There's 2 things that was an excellent project that you brought forward along with, I believe, Sandra. But I just believe these 2 had to be passed together. I don't mind them being separated. I don't understand the benefit of holding any negotiations and discussions up. It just holds the whole works. And if a motion to refer is put on the table that requires a vote, I don't know what all that was about. Anyway. The whole thing makes no sense. We're just putting everything off for another almost a year. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Councillor Mealy.
If I may, through you to Mr. Anderson, so I understand what you're saying, sir. The way I see it is that council has directed staff to put aside stuff from the SOMAS lands for peer improvements at Canal Beach as well as other relevant city projects. Right. So the way I look at it is it's pretty open, meaning we can save it. Will we use it for Canal Beach, for the pier? Not sure. We have to have those discussions. But can we use those for other projects if that doesn't happen? Absolutely. Yes. And I'm also assuming we would also sell it off if need be. So the way I look at it, and I do like the analogy from Councillor Patola, can I keep this nut and can I use it elsewhere? All we're doing is moving it to one side, keeping it and then saying, okay, when we have those discussions, we have this stockpiled for Canal Beach if it all works out. And if it doesn't all work out, we can still use it or sell it off. But at least we're doing the first part first and just kind of saying, let's do this, and then let's have those discussions as per required with our local
And you
neighbors.
could sell it off before the next budget meetings too,
Well,
because you haven't followed through with number 2.
that's not the way I look at it, sir, so.
Well, we have a different way of looking at it.
I
I'm just
understand,
voicing my-
and I respect you.
What to do about nothing.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. Are there any questions online? Any other further questions from the audience? All right, then I will ask for a motion to adjourn this meeting. Seconded by Councillor Solda. All in favor? Meeting is adjourned.
Aye.
Thank you. Feel better, Councillor Douglas. Thanks for participating, Cheryl.